I'm just trying to look underneath this, you know?
Far from perfect, but no rats, rat-free zone.
Hello, lovers. Welcome back to And Just Like That, The Writer's Room, the official companion podcast of And Just Like That from Max. I'm Michael Patrick King, writer, director, and executive producer of And Just Like That. And sitting at the writing room table with me today are executive producer and writer Julie Rottenberg.
Hi.
Executive producer and writer Elisa Zuritsky.
Hello.
Co-executive producer and writer Samantha Irby.
Hello.
Hi, and we are here today to talk about episode 2, The Rat Race, written by Julie Rottenberg and Elisa Zuritsky and directed by me, Michael Patrick King. Okay. We have to talk about the last moment of episode 1, which I felt was dark and a little mysterious and a little confusing. So what we wanted to sort of give the audience in the beginning of the second episode was classic Sex and the City. Classic. Remember her? Here she comes,
On
walking
the town, looking
Here she
incredible.
comes, right. So we start with Carrie Bradshaw walking down the street, cobblestones, going to a bar.
Dressed to the nines.
Yeah, we really wanted the audience to know it's also this show too. And a lot of this episode is really sort of leaning in to the thing we loved when we wrote Sex and the City, the thing we liked when we watched Sex and the City, the sort of fun singleness, girl on the town kind of a show. So she meets Lizette at a bar. Now, Lizette is an interesting character. I love her.
My phone is who I'm in a relationship with. I mean, you're so lucky that you met Aidan before all of this. I spend every waking hour scrolling, swiping, texting, and it's all just hurtful or meaningless. I'm so sick of it.
And we wanted to use Lizette to be the mouthpiece for all of our frustrations with our phones and what our phones have become.
But especially,
to us as a dater.
especially in our case, like our younger friends who are still, I have someone really close to me in her 30s who is dating on the apps, being driven absolutely crazy by what it's become. I mean, dating was fucking hard before the apps, and it seems
never good.
even
It seems to be more relentless.
even
Everybody I know
harder.
who's dating on the phone literally wants to do what Lisette does in the show, which is throw it away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard. And Carrie is there to talk about the thing she loves right now, which is the house.
Talk about laying pipe. Like we
Oh my
had
God.
this is a great scene for
Laying pipe being
what are
exposition.
Yes. If you listen to the previous episode of the podcast, you would know that.
Oh, and shouldn't we say stop right now if you haven't
Oh,
watched
yes.
episode 2,
The Rat
Yes.
Race.
Yes.
Please
there are
go
going to
watch
be
it.
spoilers.
Yes.
And then come back because we're going to talk about it.
But this is a great example of like a scene, and maybe every scene has some version of an assignment attached, but we have a lot of ground to cover here. We have to remind the audience who Lizette is. Lizette
that she
moved-
got Carrie's old
Yeah,
apartment.
and she's Carrie's old neighbor,
And
and
she's a jewelry
Carrie's
maker.
young friend, and she's, trapped in the present hell of dating.
Right.
And, here she is still wanting to hang out with her more sophisticated friend, Carrie. And Carrie is having a love affair with her vintage house.
Which is, Elisa, very Carrie. I mean, Carrie has always been a great lover
Romantic.
of New York.
Yeah.
Of New York City. And
Yeah.
what she's sort of doing is like she knows everything about a Vivienne Westwood dress.
Right.
And now she knows everything about the
Her house.
1846
It's like the
Gramercy house
anthropological
she's lived
dig.
in.
Yeah.
And I really think this is a very good crossfade into Sarah Jessica and Carrie. She delighted in talking about history because Sarah Jessica loves history so much. And then when you two tapped into the idea that Carrie's going to talk about history, it was one of the most sort of buoyant scenes. I've seen Sarah Jessica was really excited to talk about Gramercy.
And there was so much. I mean, this is one of these scenes I now that you remind me how
In an
hard it
easy way.
was, where it's like I think we wrote it 20,000 different ways to get it just right.
Because it's tricky with a scene like that.
Yes.
Because I Googled that house and that block, and it is everything that Carrie says about that house is true.
And more
And-
that we had to cut out.
Yeah, of
And
course.
it's like, how do you give all that information and not
Keep the
keep
scene
the
alive.
audience?
I know how you do it.
You know,
You order 2 vodka gimlets, and then the audience thinks they're having a
Gin.
drink with
Yeah.
Carrie and
Okay,
Lizette.
classic.
And,
yes.
and the thing is, the great contrast is, you're so lucky you met Aidan before the phones. I mean, that's like saying, you're so lucky you met
Yeah.
Aidan before automobiles. I
Right.
mean, it is like, that's how old Carrie and Aidan's relationship is
Yeah,
compared
compared.
to
Right.
today.
Right. But it's also a way of the unspoken thing is things aren't that easy with Aidan
Well,
right
she
now.
says, well, she doesn't say that, but what she does say, and that's unspoken and is the beginning of what we did with the novella that she's writing, Lizette says to her, it must have been so much easier to date in 1846. And Carrie says, I wonder, which is just the
the
doorway.
springboard.
Can I back
please.
up a little and say that, at least for me, while watching it and while like talking about it, you listening to Lizette, you understand maybe why Carrie's willing to tough it out with the Virginia of it all.
Wow. Yeah, it's like a
because it's like, well,
cautionary
that's your
tale.
future.
Yeah.
Is having to text people to get to know them. You've already got this person. All you got to
Yeah.
do is hang on for his kid to get a little older. At least for me, I was like, oh, I understand why she would
Yes.
not throw her hat back into this
That's
ring.
true. That's
It's true. And then, speaking of throwing, and then Lizette gets so frustrated. By the way, she's dating a psychiatrist. It's not like she's dating kids. That's the
Right.
point.
Supposed
Adult
to
men are
be
standing up this
a mental
gorgeous,
health expert.
gorgeous creature. I also think the story here is, look at Lizette. Look how much she's getting rejected. Classic Sex and the City. It's not you, it's them. It's hard out there, no matter who you are, what you look like. It is hard to find anyone to love. It's classic. It's not you, it's them. And she gets so frustrated that she throws her phone into the crowd, which is fun. And then Carrie says, oh, is that what we're doing now? Just throwing stuff over there if we don't like it. I like when you do something aberrant
Yes.
and you don't pretend it didn't happen as writing, and then the next character says, you just did something aberrant. I'm going to talk about that. Otherwise, I think you lose gravity in writing if you don't have a cause and effect. If somebody does something weird and the other person doesn't
Address
underline
it.
that, it's just like, well, this is
Right.
TV
What-
versus
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Universe are we living in?
Right.
But it also gives us that moment where Lizette presents Carrie with this necklace that she created for her. And I mean, the writers type out, Carrie opens the jewelry box. There's a necklace that says her old address, 245. Now that's the typing. The reality of creating that, you have to then go to Molly and Danny in wardrobe, and there's a jewelry designer, and it's not, everything is custom made. We type it out and then they have to create it. And there's many versions of this that comes. And then we go, that doesn't look cool enough. Oh, was that Lizette? Is that what she designs? Because she's a jewelry designer. And then which one? Molly's like, Sarah Jessica would like this one. So you want to find something that Sarah Jessica is going to, then we run it by her. So you see this beautiful necklace, but it's,
For 20 seconds, not even probably.
yeah, but it is Carrie's old address because we wanted to remind the audience, because I think the audience is still attached to that old address.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's like,
And maybe
Well,
you know, there are-
wondering and wondering,
no, but there are like,
are we going back there?
there are Aidan big audience members, and there's definitely old apartment, new apartment audience members. People like what they know. They don't like something new. And Carrie's running around in this big apartment. Who knows what people think? But we know they liked the nostalgia of the old apartment.
We just wanted to keep it alive and acknowledge that it's there.
Right.
And
And
maybe
it's
we'll
still
see it
a-
again, or maybe we won't.
Yeah, and the idea also in the guy that comes up, the cute guy that comes up, very important. He asks Carrie if he can buy her a drink. And that's in the show so that we can see options. Options. She's not just settling.
Yeah.
Despite what Sam just said about like, "Hey, this is not, nobody's out there." A cute guy comes up and looks right at Carrie and says, "Can I buy you a drink?" So we wanted the audience to know there are other options.
Yeah.
And the other thing I like about the scene is here are these two women, just friends, and it defies ages. You know, like Carrie's got friends of all kinds and ages, and it's just another box that we break out of. Like you have to be friends with people who are your same age.
I also want to talk about how the book, the decision to write this period novel, I mean, this is like two departures for Carrie because she's not just writing memoir and she's not just writing fiction, but she's writing period fiction. And that idea kind of came up rather organically in the room. And we all, that was a conversation. I was going to say we all signed off on it pretty quickly, but I remember Lucas especially having some reservations about it.
You know who I remember being all in immediately was Samantha. The idea of Carrie writing a book that was of another time.
Person.
Why did you like that so much, Sam?
Well, one, I think Carrie's, like, just the idea that she was beginning to write again was, I mean, right up my alley. But also, I love
because you're a writer,
idea,
you're a book
Samantha
writer as
Irby,
well.
author of many, many wonderful books. Go out and buy them all.
Thank you for, please buy them all. But then I like the idea that she is in her 50s and doing a career pivot. And I think, like, you know, I guess people who don't think very deeply about what writing is like are probably like, oh, it's all the same thing. But it really is so different to go from writing about yourself and sort of mining your life for things to talk about and then pivoting to creating a world of your choosing. I think that's such a big deal. And the idea that one of the best things about this show is that we show women who have reached an age where most people stop paying attention to what women are doing. And these women are finding ways to reinvent themselves, new ways to approach their lives, new ways to, like, switch up their careers. So Carrie making the pivot from memoir, which is, she has like 7 books or something. She's good at that. She knows how to do it. She did it for years. But seeing her, like, challenge herself and being open to a new way of working that she doesn't have to do, right? Like, she doesn't have to do anything.
No, she
so
doesn't
this
have
idea
to.
that she's gonna challenge herself was really exciting for me.
Exciting and also kind of cagey, because she's writing a book not about herself.
Yeah.
That's it's the woman character, which still gives her distance.
The idea of placing it all the way back in the past and the excitement of that in the room, after we sort of all got on board with that, you had the very strong impulse that the audience is going to need, because they're not in the room with us, they're going to need a little bridge to how Carrie, the writer, got there.
Yeah.
And so you had the idea that she's having a love affair with her house. She's learning about the history of it. And in this difficult moment in her love life, and like through that channel comes this period novel.
And when you see her in the garden, she's talking, the very first part of the voiceover, she actually is talking about her night the night before. She's actually contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
She's writing a memoir there, and she says she had to remind herself, this wasn't the same relationship. This wasn't her past. This was a new
present
house. And she looks up at the house and then decides on Sarah Jessica's face, oh, it'll make it the present 1846. So that was the thing that we wanted to show the audience. She's sort of talking about what happened in the last episode, and then she decides to completely pivot and make it a different time. Probably because it's easier to live in a different time. Harder to write, but easier to live.
But also it gives her a little more leeway. In a way, it's like insurance. It distances
Yeah, there's some
her
emotional
Like
from-
distance.
triple distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You
also
can get away with more.
And as a writing team, all of us, it is really kind of like a triple flip. It's hard to think about how do you write prose in the period piece. And later on, we even have people commenting on the fact that it's difficult. But what happens in the voiceover is it's another lean into Sex and the City. It is so comforting to hear Sarah Jessica's voice again, the way we used to hear Carrie.
Yeah,
in-
as a writer.
as
yeah.
a writer in Sex and the City.
It's
And the
true.
reason she never had any voiceover in the first 2 seasons of And Just Like That is she didn't have a perspective. Now she's a little bit more comfortable, and she's decided to give herself perspective, which is fantasy. I'm far away. And then while she's writing and we're establishing this gorgeous, gorgeous, bucolic, idyllic life,
Fairy tale.
we bring
the
in
music
real
is
life,
fairy tale.
real New York City rats.
Oh my God! 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 Oh my God!
In case you don't live in New York, rats are very much a part of our existence.
Terrain, their natural habitat.
Yeah, it is.
It's like
Really-
a safari. It's like
and
a
they
rat
can-
safari.
And they,
God.
or as the guy says later, the garden, it was a rat superhighway.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, rats suddenly appear in New York. I remember from the time when I was in my 20s, I'd get out of the subway, and all of a sudden, I was in an army of rats on 72nd Street
Oh, yeah.
going
Yeah.
through the
They're
parks.
still here.
And that thing about everything in New York City is if you look underneath it, it can be dark and weird. And so Carrie has this beautiful garden, which is sort of alluded to in this Walt Disney Snow White moment
Right.
before where she sees a
She
squirrel.
even
Like,
says,
hello. Like she's Snow
Hello,
White now.
you.
Hello, you. Like I'm having the best life.
Right. So again, I refer you to the cream pie
Yes.
definition that we talked about in the last episode.
Whenever something seems either
Too
Yeah, whenever
good.
it's
too
nice,
perfect
too
or
good.
someone seems too sure of themselves.
Listen, let me tell you something. If you thought the necklace was a lot of work, getting rats was even worse.
Oh, my God.
My
Right,
God.
these two type rats. And then we
Right.
find out that
That's
New
our
York City
fault.
doesn't allow rats to perform. In
Without
any, no, they can't come.
What?
Rats.
We needed to import them,
We had
right?
to bring them in from
Yeah.
Atlanta. You cannot bring rats from outside into New York City. The rats had to be flown in from Atlanta
story.
with a rat wrangler
Look at Sam's
an
face
actual
right now.
rat wrangler.
who
This
actually.
is blowing my mind.
Like these rats have
Like, this is the stuff I want to know. Okay,
rats-
45 minutes on this.
There can be no performing rats from New York City in New York City. You can't bring them in. It's
Performing
It's like a
Performing.
unit.
trained rats. It is.
These
I wish-
rats,
It was-
These rats came from Atlanta with the rat wrangler and his two
It was-
teammates
they
flown
had
in.
more-
Can we say it was a challenging day
It was a
on set?
night.
for
It was one
a
of
lot
those
of
2
us.
a.m. nights, and the garden. We're at the garden, and Carrie, and of course we've gone through all the trouble of picking what's the most
The
unrat-like shoe. How about a pink shoe with a big
God.
pink bow? And the rats and the guy said to me, "We need to have like a couple of hours in the garden to practice the track from there to there." Okay. So we give them hours in the garden to have the rats run from the bush to here,
Can't
from the
believe
bush
there
to
was
here.
Rat rehearsal.
Then we bring in
Oh,
Sarah
yeah.
Jessica at like 2 a.m. and she's standing there. And then we go. And the rats, no, they don't want to do it. And they're kind of running,
Tired.
not coming. And then he's smearing peanut butter on a stick across the way. And I said to the guy, what was the rehearsal for? And he looks at me and goes, what can I say? They're rats. Like I call bullshit on rat wrangler. I mean,
God.
what
And
can I
these are
say? They're
professional rats.
And Sarah Jessica's in the corner
Singing, probably.
singing to herself to keep herself up while we get the rats back in the cage, out of the cage, in the cage.
Let's give it up for
Well,
Sarah Jessica,
yeah,
please.
rats,
Oh my
I
God,
mean,
rats.
I've never felt so
Rats
guilty.
and cats, ladies
Also,
and gentlemen.
I remember when they were rehearsing with the I was about to say chipmunk, squirrel, sorry, in the squirrel
Squirrel was
union.
brilliant compared
Was
to
he
the rats.
allowed to be local hire?
The squirrel was from out of town, too. But the squirrel...
Oh my
I just
God.
remember them
The
saying,
squirrel was Nicole Kidman of squirrels. The rats were community theater actors.
Basically, as it was explained to me, is that if that squirrel went up the side of the garden, the set, there was like no coming back.
No,
from
you can't.
it.
Any animal on the set. By the way, animals are so much more protected than people. It's crazy.
True.
But speaking of cats and rats and animals, I just want to say that Shu, which we did not mention in the last
Oh,
episode,
yeah, we didn't talk
when
about Shu.
season 2 ended, little baby Shu was a kitten. By the time we filmed
Blanking on her
season
name.
Sarah Jessica
3, Sarah
adopted.
Jessica adopted
yeah.
little
Yes.
little
Sage
Shu, whose
or-
name was
Oh, yeah,
Lotus.
Sage.
Lotus.
And the
Lotus.
cat
Well,
is the
there
size
were
of
two.
this table now. So they had to go on we had to wait for another litter of
search.
kittens to
Oh,
be
yeah,
born.
from
we had
Boston, I
litter
think.
waiting, and like, do we have a Shu yet? Do we have a Shu yet? Does it look like the Shu? So the new Shu was a new kitten.
This is the
And
kitten.
over the course of the 6 months that the episode takes place and we filmed, the cat grows chronologically accurately.
My God.
So when you see the cat every time, it's growing in real time with the episodes that we're filming because we filmed in order. But so Sarah Jessica has the rats, and of course, how much can you ask someone to scream?
Yeah.
Only
and,
so
and
much.
run up a spiral
At 2 a.m.
staircase in shoes.
In stilettos.
And then come back down, and then go back up, and then come back down. Anyway, the rats. Now, speaking of cartoon rats, let's go to like our cartoon mice, Charlotte and LTW.
Oh, good. Okay,
I mean,
that's what I was
literally,
hoping.
those two, we had always conceived them as the Thelma and Louise of the Upper East Side mom syndrome. And so we now see them coming out of the school.
Now, this is one of these stories that, and this happens writing on this show, both Sex and the City and Just Like That, where we will either be experiencing something in our real life that we want to put in the show, or it's just about to happen for us. And this was the collision for me of I had a lot of friends whose kids had all gone through this insane college acceptance, admissions,
and the application hell.
hellish nightmare that has become. And this idea that now there are these advisors you can hire to help your kid craft their essay.
This is
and
so
the
Julie and Elisa,
application.
this story. Samantha and I are like, what?
Well, I also want to say Susan Fales Hill.
Oh, yeah.
You
yeah.
had,
Oh, yeah.
had
Oh,
sure.
lived,
Yeah.
she had walked. She had already done
Oh, she'll be
it.
coming in.
Yeah,
she'll be
she'll
coming
be
in
here.
soon. Don't worry.
She
Yeah.
was like
So
the
she-
senior
right.
advisor.
So she had sort of been through it. And Elisa and I she was like the senior and we were
Yes.
like the freshmen.
Yes.
Like about to get into it and like what you are and aren't supposed to do. And at certain schools, and definitely for Elisa's school, they do make, and Susan's also for her
Yes.
kid, these rules that like you're not
Yes.
supposed to hire outside.
Yes, we just were told that at
Outside
I have an
college
11th
counselor,
grader.
helpers,
Outside
Yeah.
right.
coaches.
yeah.
So here you have these two coming out of the school. We have our mommy group, which has been in the show a couple of seasons. Whenever
we
you
love
need
them.
like pick a little, talk a little,
Right.
pick a little, talk a little,
The
you get
Greek
these
chorus.
amazing actors, and they're thrilled, and they're talking, and they overhear the name Lois Fingerhood.
We like the idea that Charlotte and LTW are basically goody-goodies.
Goody-goodies.
They followed the rules.
The rules.
Follow the rules.
Yes.
And the fact that everyone else isn't following the rules
Well,
was
yeah,
so...
because Charlotte hears Lois Fingerhood, and I like the fact that Charlotte knows so much that she goes, "Are you talking about the Ivy Whisperer, the Ivy
Yes.
School
Right,
coach?"
like we wanted to make
She's
sure
read
they're not
New York
idiots.
Magazine.
Yeah, it
she
feels like-
knows who she is.
Yeah, she knows.
Yes.
And then they bust into, they find out that there's somebody breaking the rules, and it's these four mommies, and they basically
they're like,
tattle.
Storm the
They-
principal's
They
office.
storm the principal's office as the good girls.
This, and I will say, one of the inspirations for this role was my neighbor and friend Joey, who introduced the idea to me that we talk about in the episode, that at least right now, the idea of being a well-rounded person when you're applying for college is no longer necessarily
Seen as a good thing.
your strongest, yes.
So we wanted
avenue accept it.
to sort of
It's
cast
actually going to hurt you.
these two incredibly competent moms in a position where they're running catch up as negligent because they found out through the school principal, Greg, played by Tim Bagley again, that, come on, we look the other way when it comes, because the school counselor's name is Debbie and she's not that great.
How do you think we got 9 kids into Princeton this year? It wasn't because of Debbie.
What are you saying? He's saying F-bomb the rules as long as you get into an Ivy.
So they decide, well, we're going to have to do something about it, right?
We're going to have to play dirty. We're going to have to, get into this. And this is the rat race. This is the rat race for them. And every parent I know says they're going to try to stay sane, and every parent in one way or another joins the rat race.
Right. And the interesting thing about this to me is they start the rat race trying to do both. They're at work and they're stalking Lois Fingerhood online. And then
They do.
she calls LTW at work, who's working with Grace, and they bust a move. And they wind up, they find
Crashing
out
the Little
Lois is
League.
at a Little League park in Central Park.
Well, also the idea that, first of all, the insane things we do for our children, and under the guise of I'm doing this for my children. Also, the idea that they had been sane, and we wanted to hear Lily say, "I thought we're not doing that."
Going off the deep end.
It's like
Yeah.
everything that Charlotte
No, they went off the
believed
deep end
in.
and they chased her down to and now we have Kristen Schaal, who is, like this episode, I have to say, is filled with some of the most amazing comic actresses.
Yes, so
and
lucky.
Kristen is like, sure, I'll do it.
We also wanted, in the casting of this part, it's like, sure, we could have gone for like a very classically power broker kind
Upper
of person.
East Side
Upper East
type.
Side. But we wanted to make the most powerful person on the Upper East Side look like nothing you would think she would look like. And that is Kristen Schaal, who is so frickin'
Funny
funny.
in everything she
and-
does.
So Charlotte and LTW are becoming obsessed with Lois Fingerhood, and Charlotte is asking Anthony when they're walking down the street, should she text again? He calls her a tween. And then they stop in front of a building. And he says, this is what I wanted to show you. And we see a sign that says, coming soon, Hotfellas Bakery. And then Elisa.
No,
was
it was Julie. It was Julie.
Oh my God, Anthony, someone stole your great idea.
That was a writer's room pitch that just
Thank
came
you.
out of Julie's mouth.
Yeah.
That was so
and
funny.
then to give Elisa kudos, the idea of this season, let's take Hotfellas, which was just a germ of an idea in the very first season of And Just Like That. Let's make it brick and mortar.
Or as he says, Dick and Mortar.
Yeah.
Thank you. And give them a new place to hang out. And now we have to say the most shocking thing about that location is that it's real. It's actually on the Upper East Side. I mean,
Well,
we created
we
That's
it.
what makes
created
it was,
I
by
mean,
the way,
my
we
favorite
created
thing
it.
ever.
It
My
was,
favorite
that
thing
was
ever.
an empty real estate space.
On the
and
corner of like 90th
it's right
and
where it's
Madison.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
Now, here's the
Exactly.
thing. We knew we were going to do a coffee shop area called Hotfellas. It's so multicam in theory, meaning it's a little false and comic artifice,
Yeah.
that we decided we
Gotta
have
be
to make it
real.
real.
Yeah.
So we asked production to find a space where it's actually, you can see cars and buses and
People,
walking
people,
by and
yeah.
windows. And they found this empty space. And then Karen and Miguel, Miguel, the set designer, and Karen, the set decorator, created Hotfellas. Everything you see, the tile, the bread handles,
bread
the
itself.
lighting, the banquettes,
The tables, yeah.
it's
Ugh,
all
just
touched
love
by
it.
the denim feel of the Hotfellas, and it's so realistic that when we were filming, people on the Upper East Side kept coming in ordering bread, and
They
we were
kept-
like, "It's not real."
And
Poking in and saying, when
is
this
it really
opening?
opening?
And
yeah.
we're like, everybody
It's
was so
never
because
excited.
the most incredible thing is we shot for 6 months.
Yeah.
So that location existed all 6 months, and people would walk by and think it was opening soon, and then every now and then we would be there with our cameras and our bread and our lights and our actors, and it was like this great illusion.
And
I
they'd
love
come
it.
in, and we had lots of real bread,
Yeah.
and they'd come in, and we'd be like, "Here, take one," and they'd leave with a baguette in a Hotfellas bag. I was like, "That's a collector's item.
Yeah.
You don't even
Those
know
were
it."
my
Yeah, no
favorite
kidding.
days.
Oh,
But
yes.
it was
Just
our
love
way
it.
of doing a coffee shop scene in a weird way. It's on the Upper East Side. It's just cappuccinos and bread, and it was a way way of putting our characters in a familiar place and knowing because it was Anthony, it was always going to be comic gold, Mario Cantone. And also the idea of even when they're having conversations in future episodes, you'll see all you see walking by them is like a hot package in a denim and an ass walking by in denim. Like it's constant eye candy or eye booty.
And I'm also going to say just from a writer's perspective for us, with so many characters, we have 6 with Anthony. We have 6 main characters on our show. So it's always a math puzzle to figure out how are we going to
get them all
give them all
place.
Stories, you know, in enough time, tell these full stories. And so wherever we can bundle, as Michael says, so Hotfellas became like a perfect place because you could have, you know, a little droplet of Anthony's story with 3 other stories kicking off. So
and in a very entertaining, who doesn't want to be there? I want to be there. Then we cut to Lily's ballet class, where Lily is playing the piano because her job has always been to play for class because she's a classical pianist. And we see Diego, the hot kid that she's making eyes with. Dancer. And Charlotte's calling her. And she ignores it. And the next thing we see is Lily sexual for the first time in front of your face. Lily on a staircase, making out in a ballet staircase, and Charlotte discovers.
And we were excited to actually give Lily a real guy with real action. And the fact that Charlotte says out loud, like, oh, I'm so relieved. I thought it was all in your head. It's like just saying the thing out loud.
And that's where she says, I thought we weren't going off the deep end, but they do. And then you see LTW at a lacrosse field running in a...
So this was just like fun. Let's give Charlotte
see
and
them
LTW
go completely crazy.
Yes.
So of course LTW and Charlotte
go off the deep end.
They go off the deep end and they get her to agree to meet their kids.
And then of course, careful what you wish for. They get her. She gets alone with their kids.
Well, and also we had a lot of debate about what happened in that meeting. Remember, we explored a lot of avenues where the kids stand up for themselves, where you know there were all kinds of things, but then we realized no,
the reality is
the kids would go crazy. It's like exactly what they feared would happen. They would
kids
see
became
their
overwhelmed
kids.
and shut down.
Yeah, and it's exactly what they were trying to protect their kids from, which is like, don't get caught up in the rat race, in the insanity. People are crazy these days about applying to colleges,
and also you have to see yourself a certain way and
package yourself.
And Lois is telling Lily to throw out everything that's special about her, and then the phrase Lily says, "I have nothing spiky."
Right.
Yeah.
Pointy.
And then poor Herbert Jr. says, Mom, am I inauthentic? Which breaks my heart every time. And of course, LTW is the grown-up in the room to be like, this is stopping now.
Yeah,
and of course, Charlotte is a baby who's like losing her mind.
Lily's having a panic attack, breathing into the truffles bag.
And you're reminding me what I was about to say before, which is sometimes we'll write something that I've heard about or that I know is happening, and then suddenly it starts happening in my own life.
Yeah.
Just like we saw Charlotte and LTW at work, now we see Miranda at the Human Rights Watch. So important for us to get Miranda back to work. And it's very important. And what we wanted to do with that first scene is show also something very silly.
Something you may not know about my friend and writing partner, Elisa Zuritsky, is she does enjoy a few.
One at a time. One every few years, there's a trashy reality show that comes into my life and takes over.
And you become zealous about.
And it fascinates me and it like takes over. So
and I have to budget for a certain amount of just hearing about the last night's reality show.
For me, it was Love is Blind. And I'll just say that just like the interns, sucking Miranda into Bye Bingo, as you know, because you watched the episode, the initial thought was that, Miranda's just, suddenly obsessed with this show. As back in the day, she became obsessed with Jules and Mimi, remember?
On Sex and the City.
But then we realized, well, we want an extra scene. We want to see how it happens. So we decided, she's got these young interns at work. They're the perfect people who are like watching it on their lunch break, hashtag obsessed. And she's going to be judgy about it. And then find herself sucked in, which, by the way, is what happened to me with my 16-year-old daughter who was watching it, and I was horrified, and I was, speechifying about how dangerous it is, what a horrible, destructive idea of romance this is, and then I started watching it, and I am now completely obsessed with every season.
And the hook for me, in terms of the pitch and everything, is Miranda. It's the bi-ness of it all. It's like women talking about being with men or women. It's very interesting that Miranda's like, yeah, I get it. I get it. This is my show.
This is fascinating.
And I love the scene that starts with her watching C-SPAN.
Right.
Yes.
We wanted to establish.
And C-SPAN is on their lunch break.
They're on their lunch break.
Just to be
and Miranda's
clear.
on her lunch break. And she's watching from C-SPAN to Buy Bingo. And then somebody stops by. And this is a character that we established briefly at the very end of the second season, Joy, the BBC producer, who Miranda gets to go on the air, and she sort of coaches her through, and they go out for drinks.
Played by the incredible Dolly Wells.
Yeah, and when we filmed that episode, just the two of them sitting at the bar at the end of season 2 talking, we all knew it was really kinetic. So we were like,
just let them.
So we decided to bring Dolly / Joy in to see what that would be starting up. So Miranda is now, we find out, in her office. Joy comes in. We see she's very funny and very wry, and she makes fun of how small Miranda's office is, because we wanted to say, hey, this isn't like, a TV show where she suddenly is the boss. She's still scrunched into an office. And you see a connection between the two of them.
A spark,
And she tells her, last week I slept with a nun, and that's the beginning of their back and forth, their
It's
parry.
a little flirty, but we don't
it's
know.
a lot flirty.
But it's also at work, so
Perfect.
maybe they're just being nice because it's work.
I'm going to drop
You
back
never
now
know.
because we also found one other really fun device in this episode, which is voice texting as sort of voiceover. When we realized that Carrie could voice text Aidan as a writer, you're so excited.
And so many people do this now.
Do it now.
I'm too much of a control freak to trust that it
I
will.
just started.
Me too.
I
I
started
have to
doing
type.
it more.
It's I have to tell you, it's more accurate than my spelling texting.
Oh, interesting.
It's really interesting how amazing it is. But the idea that Carrie is panically, comically voice texting Aidan, and we don't have to, there's a device that you have to do as a writer when you cut to a phone and you're reading it. And it's kind of a bummer because you have to cut to phones and the audience has to read the text. But when you guys and then you just wrote a comedy monologue for her on the phone.
That she would then delete.
Yeah, then she would delete it.
So again, we're trying to establish that she's still sort of figuring out the rules with
And
Aidan in this
trying to
episode.
sort of be a good girl, like trying to color within the lines and be independent, not lean on him. But she wants to.
Yeah, she has a real overview about what she wants to be seen doing. So she texts this whole thing and just says, nope, delete it. And then we have, a kind of another rule break that we do, which I'm very happy about. She's in the closet. She feels the cat around her knees. She screams.
Yeah.
And she says, I thought you were a rat. And then all of a sudden behind her someone steps into the closet, and it's Aidan.
It's so shocking, like having watched it shot, watched it edited, seen a cut. It actually every time is shocking to me that he appears.
What I think is shocking is that we broke our rule.
Yeah, we
just
broke
from
all
the
the
writing
rules.
room, we decided
He is.
we're not going to make the audience wait. Just I hate that. Like the audience is like, oh no, when are we going to see Aidan? We're like, let's bring him
Let's
in.
bust
here.
this
We're
back.
not-
Let's let them actually have a conversation about what they're doing.
And address like grown-ups.
the
I think
rules
that's
are.
what we
Yeah,
really
and
wanted.
the idea that like we have a sort of a stagnant situation in concept, and then we decide, no, let's just bring some fresh water into it. Let's have him show up so that we can see, oh, that's what she's holding out to. It's
Yeah.
so lovely, and you get to see immediately, you're reminded why they love each other.
And why she
Mhm.
even deigned to agree to this cockamamie plan.
Yes,
It's like
and
it's
it's
all
all-
going according to her
Yes.
plan. Like, of course he came up. Of course we're going to be together. And I
Because
think
we love each other.
And also, he came up
yeah.
because he said he felt weird about leaving her on the phone. So that's that same thing I always talk about. Like, some action happens. If you don't respond to it, it's just weird television.
Yeah.
But if you have somebody say, that was weird, right? So he comes up and then he does the most romantic gesture. He sweeps her off her feet. She's wearing a white dress, by the way. It's very, very carrying someone over the threshold, and they go into the bedroom.
And then the fact that we wanted her to say the thing out loud that was weighing on her, that instead of just spending the next however many episodes with her grappling with this, like, have her say the thing out loud to him.
Grown-up Carrie in the breakfast
What
scene.
are we
Mhm.
doing?
What are the
Am I
rules?
allowed
Yeah.
business hours, weekdays
Yeah,
only?
and it's really it was a deliberate move by the writing to say Carrie's not looking at this, and she equates it to the rats. It was all beautiful, but I didn't look underneath, and I want to look underneath this.
Well, and also we wanted in putting myself in Carrie's mind, I wanted to feel like, okay, I said the thing, I said the scary thing, we've done it. He references that night how maybe he overreacted. You feel like her side of the street is clean. Like
I
she
think
said
both
what
sides,
she needed to say.
I think that's interesting in relationships. When there's a problem, if you both say the thing, the problem sort of dissipates. Like, you both say, I'm in the same place as you. And then you're together again, rather than he's over there and I'm over here.
Or you're just in your own head,
You're
swimming
together
around.
with the problem solved. And it's so sweet, them sitting having toast in that little John Corbett's big body on that little creaky chair, the table for
Little
two, by the way.
half table.
Only table for two. And then the interesting thing is they think they've moved forward, and Carrie feels confident enough that he said he can communicate to her, whatever, reach out. And the next thing is she's looking for a gardener because the garden's been destroyed. She's looking for a gardener on Instagram, and she finds a thing called Adam's Gardens. And so she saves that image. And then she gets a push from First Dibs for a table she's been looking at because the house is empty. So she sees a table, and she voice texts Aidan again that she loves the table, and she's sending it to him, and she goes on and on about how it's perfect for them and all this elaborate writing, and then let me know ASAP. And what does he do?
Thumbs down. So this felt like the most evergreen issue to bring into the show. The idea of someone just a thumbs up is, I don't know, sometimes there's something there, passive aggressive. I don't know.
It's dismissive.
Well,
Yeah, it's dismissive.
You've poured your heart out, and it's a cartoon.
Right. Well, this
Right.
was the debate we had in the room. And so what better thing to do after we just all patted ourselves on the back for giving them this very adult conversation where they're talking about how they're going to be honest and direct and open, is to have her reading into this thumbs down, going off the deep end.
But she can't go off the deep end alone. So she immediately goes off the deep end with Sema and Miranda. And she says, look at this thumbs down. And they react like, what did you do? A finger emoji? She says, no, I'm a grown up. I kept it quiet. And therefore, Sema gets hit on. This is the first time we've seen Sema in the episode. She gets hit on by a very waspy looking guy. And she says to Miranda, no, I've dated him. I think there's only 5 types. And then Miranda starts talking about the show she's hate watching, which I wanted to really do something about hate watching because I think it's a infection. People are watching stuff, but they don't want to say they're watching it, so they say they're hate watching it.
There's no such thing as hate watching. If you are tuning in, then you are a fan.
You're watching.
Yeah.
What
Wow.
do you need
It
to...
just
Bold
means
words
you're
from Sam
having
Irby.
an excited negative reaction to
Yeah,
something.
but it's
You love
also...
it.
It's like the phrase guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Right.
What?
It's permission.
Anyway,
It's like, I don't actually like that show,
Right.
to be
Right.
clear.
Right. Miranda's
That's why I carve out 9 hours of my life to sit and look at it.
Yeah, to watch every episode and have a deep feeling about hate watching. So this is Miranda's thing about hate watching. And then up comes to the table is the guacamole girl, played by Sass Goldberg. And
Who, by
So
the
good.
way, on the first day that she filmed, told us she actually, in her previous
life.
life, has been a guacamole girl
I mean,
at a
it's
restaurant.
crazy. So-
Knew
It was
exactly how to do it. We
hysterical.
didn't have to
and me,
teach
who
her.
directed the episode, breathed a sigh of relief
Yes.
that I didn't have to watch somebody pretend to make guacamole. Anyway, Miranda and Ava, the guacamole girl, connect on Buy Bingo. And they just have that thing where we both love and hate the same thing. And Carrie's looking at it like, this is insane. And then she walks away and Sema says, I think that might be what I'm doing. Hate dating.
Right, because we wanted to reintroduce Sema. Like, okay, she's back out there. Ravi's gone. What kind of a dater is she?
And talk about a lean into Sex and the City.
Yes, this felt like old school. We all had 1,000 different versions of the guy who you've all known, dated, broken up with, and that Sema would know all of them. And then we just went to town and every one
Had
of
a
those
ball.
guys.
I mean, just the idea that Sema's so rat-a-tat-tat assassination dismissing these guys fast. You know, we're setting her up, right? We're setting her up for somebody who's got to learn a lesson. And then the lesson is learned pretty much, it starts when she goes to work and she's complaining about this guy, and her boss, Elliot Poust, played by the
John
amazing John
Glover.
Glover, comes in and says, I've heard this for years. You need to meet Sydney.
And again, like, this is that person, sort of the way Anthony acted in the first episode, where there's always the person who's going to say the thing out loud. Which
seems
is
to be
like
the
the
gay guys.
friend
The gay guys seem to be
intervention.
saying the thing out loud.
fair enough.
Anyway, so he says, I'm going to set you up with Sydney. And, you know, Sema's imagining it's the 70-year-old Pringles there with the colostomy bag. And trust me. And
Instead, it's Sherry O'Terry.
it's Sherry O'Terry as
Oh my God.
Sydney Cherkoff,
The embodiment of Cindy Cherkoff. I
a
mean,
matchmaker. And Sema immediately is on the defense. But the way you guys wrote this, Sydney reads her so accurately.
Let me guess. You're 55, passing for 49. Hello, good skin. You are financially stable. You say you want someone to take care of you, but yet you have to make all the decisions. You're the one who chooses the restaurant, the wine, and flags down the waiter for the check. You have made all your dreams come true, except for finding the man of your dreams. Now, you say it's because you're too picky, but it's really because, until now, you haven't met me.
Well, we talked about, like, okay, why would this woman still be single? Why would this powerful, gorgeous, funny, smart, why is she still single?
Like all the other powerful, gorgeous, smart, funny, single women in the world.
And we all had a version of our theory, and we wanted to say the thing out loud, which she does. She says, you're controlling. You have to choose the thing. You don't let the man talk. All the things I feel like our mothers taught us, which is like, don't say too much. Here's what a man needs to feel to be in a good relationship. And I love that we just exploded
But she's
all of
basically
that.
saying, you're this. You have to be in control. You're this. You're that. Do that. And Sema makes a joke. What do you want me to do? Wear pastels? Would it kill
Would
you?
it kill you?
And
It might.
and then Sema dismisses it and then goes home. And in just one little scene, sees her perfect double bed empty. And the look on Sarita's face tells us, well, maybe she should try something else.
And the fun of like creating the Sydney character is who is going to put, Sema is a character who reads everybody. Look at what she was doing with those guys. She was, in 2 seconds, she was dressing them down, nailing exactly who they were. So the fun of coming up with Sydney was, who is going to be that for Sema? Sema needs that person for herself. And, she even knows what Sema's going to eat.
And
right?
to
Yeah, so she goes
see-
the distance, and she shows up for a date in pastels.
and she follows the rules. We wanted to,
And it works.
We wanted to
It works.
show
This
her.
guy likes her. He likes her.
Do we
until-
like her though? That's the question.
Right.
No.
She's like a shell of her former self.
And then we just knew she had to say, "This isn't really me." And then the fantasy version would be him saying,
which is what he
"I'm
did.
so glad you told me
Elisa, every
that."
time she sees it, is convinced.
I think,
No,
oh,
she
yay.
wrote it, and
She's
every
gonna-
time she sees it, she's convinced this guy's going to
It
say the
could
right
work.
thing.
It's true.
I
And then
know.
every
I
time
love the
he
real you.
disappears.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It is
He-
the fantasy.
There's nothing, what does he say? There's nothing sexier than
an honest woman. And
you
she's
know?
so proud of herself and a little smug. And then he leaves and Sydney appears.
Appears.
I love in that little screen moment. And then as if you know Sydney has seen this all before. Like I
Yeah.
feel like this is what happens.
This is Tuesday
She's
for
like,
her. Yeah.
You didn't follow my instructions. You're fucked.
And then
He's
Sema,
gone,
It's gone and,
And
he's
never
coming
coming
back.
and then
Kitten.
Sema stands up for herself and says, "I don't care.
fuck off.
This
Yeah.
is not me," and that's the person we like. Sema tried it.
She breaks up with the matchmaker.
She breaks
Yeah.
up with the matchmaker. And that brings us to Carrie and Miranda having lunch at the same Mexican restaurant. And suddenly Ava comes up and Carrie realizes, I'm on a date. You manipulated me by asking me to come to lunch.
I believe you came up with the term guacamole beard, which
I'm a guacamole beard.
I appreciated being able to put
I'm
in
a
our
guacamole
script.
beard. And
Oh
then
my God.
Miranda admits to Carrie that she thinks Ava is cool. And Carrie says, I don't know, the joke, one of my favorite jokes, I think your good cholesterol level will be through the roof. And I also love Carrie through the whole episode's attitude about buy bingo. And this one she goes, I don't watch the damn show.
Yeah, that's basically me with Elisa every day.
So Carrie dismisses herself as they keep talking sexily about all these hot women on Buy Bingo, and then Miranda makes the move.
Well, and Carrie is still obsessed with the thumbs down. Like
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
both.
And Miranda says,
Right.
"Why don't you just grow up?" And she says,
I
"Okay,
don't
Buy
know.
Bingo,
Right,
right.
why don't you grow up?"
Right. Everyone's judging
Well,
everyone else.
And then this is again classic Miranda, you know, the Miranda who we've always loved as a hapless dater, just going for it and hitting the married wall, right? Like the married straight wall of Ava, guacamole girl, picked up the wrong signals.
I love how
um,
Sass very kindly, I think, breaks it to her.
I
I'm
think that's your
not
point of view. A
actually-
But
lot-
then I think she's
know a
really
lot of
bitchy
people who
about
see that
Walking
and
Dead.
go, "Ooh, that's
Yeah.
rough." When she says the thing about Walking Dead,
Yeah.
they're
Well,
like,
that's
"Well,
hard.
that's rough."
That's
That's
rough.
hard.
Yeah,
That was
that's
hard.
like the real her.
Wow.
The real non-waitress.
And then you
Right.
cut to Carrie in the bathroom looking amazing in that jean skirt. And she's deciding the corner and she's going to text Aidan her feelings and demand that he come to
Right.
terms with how he treated her by sending a thumbs up. And she looks at it again and decides no.
And
Sends
the
an
whole-
emoji, eye roll emoji.
And by the way, like the whole point of her shooting the emoji back after everything she's thought about the entire episode and been obsessing about is to kind of go back to the Lizette conversation that starts the whole show about complaining about the phone, complaining about the phone. This is such an evil device.
Infantile.
Look at what we have to look at. I, as this 20-something dater, have to deal with. And now, actually, like all of us, Carrie is just as imprisoned by her
And doing
phone.
this juvenile.
Juvenile.
Now we're,
Yeah.
now we're
Dating makes everybody a
communicating in
baby.
Emojis.
Yeah.
A teenager, everyone's an adolescent. Miranda's
And-
an adolescent.
yeah.
Like she's just a couple of years into her gay, queer life. And then they walk down the street in a Miranda, Carrie, what we call walk and talk is whenever two actors are walking down the street having a conversation. And Carrie's complaining about the fact that emojis are not a conversation. That is not standing across from somebody and saying, here's what I think, what do you think is a conversation. And Miranda says, I just said, what do you think to a straight woman who has kids about dating me? And then she admits, I have a crush on a woman at work who's a classic lesbian, but I don't know if
That's
it's
not
appropriate.
Yeah, it might not be appropriate. And Carrie gives her permission.
Carrie gives her permission.
Plenty of people meet at work.
And then she says Carrie has to go because she's meeting a gardener. And we find out Carrie's at home. The guy who's Roy, who's hiding steel wool to stop the rats from coming up in her house again, notices the cat's gone. She goes outside in a panic to find the cat because it's been trying to get out through the whole episode. At one point, Aidan says, why is that cat keep trying to get out? And she says,
her boyfriend's in Virginia.
yeah. So she goes out and she finds the cat in the arms of a man, Adam, from
Not
Adam's
just
Gardens,
any man.
played by Logan Marshall Green. And she thought he's just walking by, and he says, no, I'm the gardener. And she's, come on in. And they go into her beat to shit yard, which used to be
Patch
beautiful.
of dirt.
And he's asking her what she wants to
What's her
do.
vision?
What's
Yeah.
her vision? And the point of that is, what is Carrie's vision?
And her
For
saying,
this relationship
I have
that
no idea.
She says, I liked
it
everything the way
before."
it was, and now everything's changed. And that's our way of saying, I liked the thought of Aidan and me in this house, and
It's not
that's
that.
all gone now.
And I
It's all
don't-
changed. And I don't know. And then Adam says, I think that's exciting because it leaves room for what's going to come
A
in
new
that's supposed to
thought.
be there.
Mhm.
And that's kind of a new thought for who's this guy? What's he saying? He's sort of seeing her on some spiritual level and not any way that anyone's
And
ever
by
looked
the
at her.
way, he's also face to face with her saying the very
What do you
thing
think?
she's
Yes.
just said a relationship is, which is, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think? And here's a flesh and blood man
A
saying
flesh and
that.
blood hot
Yeah.
person.
Also, the idea and the reality of watching Miguel and Karen and our whole incredible team of designers, this beautiful garden it was a fairy tale
that they created.
And then to see it all ripped out
Because
in
we
this
destroyed it.
episode, because we destroyed it, and the idea that is sort of what we're trying to do symbolically to this relationship and this idea of this perfect house that she moved into is
Right.
It's actually now it's dirt.
And then we see that the kitty is out. Adam sees it, and Carrie picks it up and goes up the stairs. And we have the last voiceover, which clearly sets it in 1846 because she's going up the stairs and she's reporting that the woman is going up the stairs, but she says in her dove gray button boots, which Carrie is not wearing, but the woman is.
And she has referenced in this, she mentions in the scene with Lizette, the button boots.
So we
it's-
see that hopefully what the audience or viewers see is that Carrie's life, she's moving through it and interpreting it as a novella.
Or a novel. We shall see.
Yes, we will.
Coming to bookstores this fall.
And just like that, we've reached the end of episode 2, season 3. Thanks, Julie, Elisa, and Samantha. We'll be back next week to unpack episode 3 of season 3, Carrie Go Lightly. Stream new episodes of And Just Like That Thursdays on Max. Listen to the podcast on Max or wherever you hear your podcasts. And Just Like That, The Writer's Room is produced by Sony Music Podcasts for Max. At Sony, Sharon Morris is the executive producer, Gianna Palmer is the lead producer, Sammy Allison is head of production. Tamika Balance-Kalasny is our production manager, and Sam Baer is our engineer. Special thanks to Becky Rowe, Allison Cohen-Sorokach, Kenya Reyes, and Aaron Kelly from the Max Podcast team. Thank you for listening.